All right, back for round 4 of the Vintage Challenge, which is 6 rounds. We're currently 2-1, and we won the die roll playing Storm. Got a mulligan in this hand. It just doesn't have a payoff. I think you can't just assume you're going to draw into something even with 2 duresses. This hand's fine on the other hand. And it's interesting what we want to bottom here. I think bottoming Chain of Vapor is fine when we have Mystical Tutor, because we could go get a Hurkyl's Recall or Chain of Vapor if need be. So I'm probably just going to go turn 1 Preordain off a basic island, I believe. It's close, though. I think since we have Time Twister and Preordain and Mystical Tutor, that it's better to get basic island. But it's fairly close. You just don't want to really lose to a Wasteland. So that's the play I'm currently planning on making on turn 1. My opponent could perform pre-game actions that change things, but it's going to be bottom Chain of Vapor. They didn't reveal anything scary, so basic island, cast Preordain. Alright, there's Dark Ritual and Underground Sea, which are both pretty interesting cards. We could bottom the Dark Ritual here and then Mystical Tutor for Ancestral Recall. But if we're going to do that, we'd rather have the Dark Ritual if they're going to counter our Mystical Tutor. We also can Time Twister next turn. But not and Mystical Upkeep, and I'm planning on casting Mystical in the upkeep. We could also just Time Twister. Is this the mirror again? It is the mirror. All right. Wow. Now I wish I had that Chain of Vapor kind of maybe. What if we Mystical Tutor for Time Walk? Does that change anything? No, because we want to draw the Dark Ritual. We want to draw the Dark Ritual here. Turn on Necropotence is good from our opponent. Can't believe I played the Mirror twice. I did not play the Year for like over a year on Moto, and now people are actually playing this deck, which is pretty cool. I was like the only one. It was me and one other person playing it for a super long time. And we would sometimes play their decks. Like, I played every deck, so it's like, I just never played the Mirror. So I think we're supposed to Dark Ritual Twister here. I hope that gets there. Not that likely to get there, but not that unlikely either. Cool, I think we're going to win now. Time Twister's been pretty good today in the Mirror. So we're definitely playing the Mirror. And then my opponent is at a life total that I can just go ahead and tutor for Tendrils here. And 6 mana. And Spell Mastery. Cool. So we're going to sideboard the same way. We started to get into this interesting sub-game on if you're supposed to bring in Empty the Horns and stuff in the Mirror, but I still think it's not correct to do so. I am going to bring in Mind's Desire, even though it's not great. I think just having one more card is better than Chain of Vapor. Like one more card that does something. And I definitely don't want Hurkyl's Recall. What were the other cards that we were cutting? Defense Grid definitely comes out. What was the other card I was cutting? I'm down to 12 lands. I like that. I cut the Chain of Vapor and the Hurkyl's Recall. Maybe I don't have room for Mind's Desire. I like both the top deck tutors to protect from duress. Yeah, this all seems good to me. Oh, Necropotence is kind of slow. I think Necropotence is still better than Mind's Desire, though. Because it's a good top deck, whereas Mind's Desire is not. And the mirror can sometimes come down to attrition battle with discard. I think I was maybe boarding on a Necro before with the thinking process that it's too slow, but I don't know that it's too slow. Sorry for the keyboard clacking. I'm talking to my friend Eric Virgo, who is also playing Dark Vision Storm in this challenge. I think we're playing a pretty similar list, and we're rooming together for Eternal Weekend. Eric is the only person to ever top 8 both portions of Eternal Weekend in the same weekend. I came close last year. I lost my win and in for Vintage, but Eric remains the only person who's done it. And he decided this year he wanted to play Dark Vision Storm. This hand's interesting because it can cast Sadistic Psychoman on turn 1 if we draw Black Stars. And I kind of want to do a check of how many Black Stars we have in our deck. To see what the odds of drawing Black Stars are. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 12 out of 53 cards. That's a 22% chance to win on turn 1 if our opponent does not have a discard spell. And I think, well, even if they have a discard spell, we would still win. I think we can do better on 6. Yep, I like this hand better. I'm going to bottom Dark Ritual here. Well, Dark Ritual would have let us go turn 1 Dark Ritual, Duress, Necropotence. But Mystical's better against multiple things. But actually a land was probably the card we're supposed to bottom here. I regret bottoming the Dark Ritual already. Of course, if our opponent... I played this as if my opponent's going to have a Duress, and that changes everything, but... Because they're so likely... They're going to... Oh, man, if they could have Dark Ritual here, too, and that would be interesting. I should have thought a little bit more. London Mulligan leads to a lot more interesting decisions than a Scry does, I think, in some ways. I'm not feeling super confident in how I played that at this point, which is cool. I think London Mulligan is a good addition to Magic, definitely. I think a few people were worried about it, and now that we've had it for a few weeks or whatever, not weeks, it's been, I guess it's been months, no one really dislikes it at this point. I certainly don't. I like it. I think this is a pretty interesting discard. I guess I could, I should be talking through things here. Sometimes I just sit here, but I'm playing the same deck as them, so we can draw a lot from their hand based on what they take in some cases, but it's harder to do with this hand. So they think they either need to take Duress or Necropotence, but they could also take Dark Ritual, because Mystical Tutor is going to be so slow. But if I was them, I think with the context of most hands... So if they can just kill me next turn, they should take Duress. If they can't kill me for a few turns, I think it's actually fine to take Necropotence. But then it's like you get to this point where I have Duress plus Mystical, so it's like if you have a second discard spell, they're just going to say be right back. That's also an option. So they might not even just be... They might not be thinking about anything here, and they just had something going on and then have you back. So maybe this isn't actually a difficult discard decision for them, and they're just going to Duress us and then kill us on turn 1, which happens sometimes too. So if I was them, if I can win next turn, I would take Duress. If I can, I would take Dark Ritual or Necropotence. And the difference in Dark Ritual and Necropotence is fairly interesting. I think you take Necropotence because there are more ways that I have to... The other payoffs don't necessarily win the game on turn 1. I can't cast Dark Petitioner on turn 1. I can't cast Tinker or Twister anything on turn. I can't cast Citadel on turn 1. So it's like, there's not like another piece of discard that I could draw, or another piece of action if you could win the next turn. But I could draw another piece of mana. I could draw Lotus, I could draw Dark Ritual. Those are the two that I could draw. So I have no really outs if you can win on the next turn if you take Necropotence. Or I have no outs to win on the next. I can't cast Necropotent. I can't cast anything big on turn 2. So I think you take Necro and then make me Mystical for something. But then I like Mystical for Ancestral and we get into this awkward spot. But I'm going to Duress, so... I know this is probably kind of confusing. It's like my open train of thought about what this opponent's discard means, but also what it is they just went AFK, so... Oh wait, I'll be right back. I don't know what people say in Magic, but... Forgot I've actually found a Collective Brutality. I have like a Thoughtseize in my... I'm just kind of messing around with my vintage cards and paper right now because I'm getting ready for a turn weekend. And I have a Thoughtseize in here, and I'm like, why the heck do I have a Thoughtseize in this deck? And then it was a proxy for Collective Brutality, but then I drew Thoughtseize and Collective Brutality in the same hand. And then I remembered that I actually have a Collective Brutality because I was playing it in Hogak in Modern. Yeah, but I feel pretty good about this deck for turn weekend. I think I'm going to play this 75. Blightsteel has been like the biggest underperformer, but I think it's still important to have a giant robot in your sideboard of some sort. And the reason I'm not playing Sphinx, or the Take Dark Ritual, they have second Duress. Okay, that changes things. So maybe they'll take Duress with this one. I'm not really sure what they'll take. Yeah. Oh, they have Lotus. We might just be dead on turn 2. Now, what do I want to Mystical for here is a really interesting question. I do think the answer is a Ritual to cast Necropotence if my opponent doesn't kill me here. Oh, they did. Don't cast Hatsack. That'd be so rude. I gotta screenshot this. I kind of wish I wouldn't have made this deck list public before turn weekend, but... yeah, I don't have a way to win, so I concede. I hate hiding tech, but still, it's like, goodness. You kind of lose the edge. I mean, I hate hiding tech, but you lose the edge in the mirror that you have. By having that card in your deck if your opponent also has it, so it's like... It's been kind of silly today, playing the mirror twice. But the mirror's also not very popular, but... One, two, three. That sounds good. Can Duress on turn 1. 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't quite Citadel on 1. I think that's okay. I think I take Duress here. It's kind of the bottleneck of their hand currently. Well, they have Collective Brutality, but that's all they have, so... I'm going to cast this Lotus Petal in case my opponent twisters on 1 somehow. I'm also just not that far away from dying here is the kind of the issue. They ponder. I usually like to ponder or preordain before I ponder because you don't want to ponder into cards that you don't want to preordain into cards that you pondered. Because it's like if you preordain first, then it's like you get to ponder the next turn and see and have more looks. But they no shuffle anyway, so I'm likely dead. Well, so if I 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm still a mana short if I mystical for anything relevant here. If I get Yawgmoth's Will, does that do anything? So I'm mystical for Will, cast this down to 3. I'm still short. Cool, that's the one I needed to draw. So that was what we call good deck building. So there are ways that I could brick here, but it's going to be hard. So I'm going to cast Brainstorm, hold priority, cast Vamp. This can go get Dark Petition, I believe. But they just conceded. There was a few ways they could have won. GG's. Well, both mirror matches decided by having a good rip on the kind of quintessential turn, so happy that happened, and we'll be back for the next round.